Hey everyone, it's Jen.
And this is Lindsay.
And welcome back to Corpus Delicti, the podcast. Special edition, might I add. We are hanging out with a few of our Patreon friends. Hello, Delectables.
Hello, hello.
And just a side note, this episode will sound a little different because we want to make sure these missing cases get out into the public and so everyone can hear it, keep their eyes open, or if you know something, you say something.
Yeah, so we're recording over Zoom, so it's not our normal setup, so please pardon us. These tend to be a little bit more casual. You may or may not hear some voices that you're not used to hearing. Do not be alarmed. They are all friends. So yeah, just know that going into it. Also, with that said, this is the last episode of the Missing series, so we will be off the rest of December and then coming back fresh with a new series, which actually was picked by, I believe, a few of you guys on this call. We decided to roll with it. So, Jen, you want to tell what it is? We don't have a name, do we?
We do not have a name, but it is going to focus on cold cases that are solved. Now, or solved cold cases.
So they went cold for a while, they stayed cold, and then something broke and they ended up being solved. So solved after a long period of time. So yeah, that was a really good suggestion. So yeah.
So if you have a name, our dear Delictables, please interject one because we will probably use it. All right, so let's jump in really fast because this one is going to take most of our Patreon time, and Lindsay and I have something really big scheduled for after this, but we can be late, absolutely, if it needs to be.
We're going to another Zoom about our Atlanta show that's on Saturday, so we're just going from Zoom to Zoom, so just bear with us.
We have the Zoomies. Bad jokes, all right. All right, this week we're going to walk through a case of a girl that went out with her friends, but however, she never got back. Lauren Spierer was a young girl experiencing college life. She was studying textiles, fashion merchandising when she mysteriously disappeared one night when she was just out drinking with some friends, and she hasn't yet been found.
So she was born January of 1991. She grew up in Scarsdale, New York, which was a pretty affluent area of lower Westchester County. And her father was an accountant and they lived a pretty good life. She was enrolled and attending classes at Indiana University. And, you know, as a person, she was a lot of fun. She was active in her local Jewish community. She spent the spring break before she disappeared planting trees in Israel. She was a very small, petite girl. She was 4'11". She weighed 90 to 95 pounds, and she had blonde hair and blue eyes.
At the time of her disappearance, she was dating a young man named Jesse. So she goes out with C and a friend. Now, the friend was Jay Rosenbaum. They all had been friends for years because they met at a camp. It was a summer camp for kids in Pennsylvania. Her circle of friends also expanded to several other members at the university and within the Jewish community in that area. On the night she disappeared, Lauren was out with her friends, and it started out at her apartment. They were watching a basketball game. It was the end of the school semester, and you know what? It's time to blow off steam. And Jesse couldn't go out that night, or just something was going on and he didn't want to go out that night, so he didn't. But he was texting Lauren all throughout that evening, and Lauren went out, had a great night. She got very heavily intoxicated, and her friends recall, in their words, she was just extremely drunk.
So let's get into some of the time frame of her disappearance. So we're starting on June 3rd. It's a Friday of 2011 at 12:30 in the morning. There is a witness account that Lauren left her apartment with David Rohn. He was one of Lauren's friends. Together, Lauren and David, they walk 2 blocks down to Jay's apartment where they meet up with Jay Rosenbaum and Corey Rossman. Corey lived next door to Jay, so they were neighbors. So some articles say that at Jay's place, this group of friends took Klonopin and or cocaine. Don't know if it's true or not, but that is what some of the sources said. So there was surveillance video that picked Lauren up on the video when she walked into the Kilroy Sports Bar at 1:45 in the morning. So when Lauren left, she left her shoes and her cell phone. She did not have them on her. And she walked out to the sand-covered patio that they had there, which is why she didn't have her shoes on.
Without her phone or her shoes, Lauren and Corey walked back to Lauren's apartment in the Smallwood Plaza. And about 3 minutes later at 2:30, Zach Oates saw Corey and Lauren. He remembers getting the impression that Lauren, again, had drank a little too much at the bar, but he pulled her aside and said, "Hey, are you okay? Do you need me to walk you home?" Just being a good friend and checking on her. No, she's good. 15 minutes later, around 2:48 a.m., Lauren leaves her apartment and walks down the alley between College Avenue and Morton Street. There's a surveillance camera, and it captures her walking down the alley and coming out of the alley at 2:51. The camera itself was attached to an apartment complex across the street. She was walking towards an empty lot, and she was going down this alley. Lauren drops her keys to her apartment and her purse. So no shoes, no cell phone, no purse, no keys.
So it's not long after that Lauren and Corey make it back to Jay's apartment. So at the apartment was Jay's roommate, which is Michael. Now, Jay has had too much to drink as well. He is getting sick on the carpet. He's trying to make it up the stairs. And Michael helps Jay up the stairs to his bed. When Michael comes back downstairs, he tries telling Lauren, "Look, you need to stay here. You've had too much as well. You need to just stay put and just sleep this off." And she said, "No, I want to go back to my apartment to sleep." Now, remember, she doesn't have her cell phone. She doesn't have her shoes. She doesn't have her purse or her keys, nothing. And so it's not clear if at this point if she even realized that they were missing, because how else was she going to get into the apartment? So now it's 3:30 a.m. in the morning, and Michael calls Jay, and he was calling Jay to come take care of Lauren. He's like, "Hey, come help me out with her," because she's still wanting to drink, and she's trying to convince Michael to come back to her place to continue the fun. So instead, they just stayed at the apartment. Lauren left, but before Lauren left, Michael noticed a small bruise that was forming under Lauren's eye, and he assumed, she had fallen earlier in the evening. It was probably just a little mark from that. But when he said, "Hey, what happened?" she's like, "I don't know. I don't even remember what happened."
It's 4:30 in the morning. The sun's going to be coming up in just a little bit. And Lauren is now ready to leave, assumingly to go back to her apartment. Jay said he watched her cross the intersection of 11th Street and College Avenue headed south on College. Now she is barefoot, wearing leggings and a white t-shirt. This is the last time anyone has reported seeing her. Jesse wakes up in the morning. He was like, "I'm going to send Lauren a text," but he never gets a response. But when he calls, he gets a reply from an employee at the bar. He gets worried. He's freaking out. He doesn't know where she is. He calls around, and she now is reporting missing. Now, all the boys involved in that evening, they knew that this was trouble, right? They knew they all been drinking together. There's a accusation that's hanging out there about the Klonopin and the cocaine. So their parents immediately get lawyers for all the boys. Now, the police want answers, and they are considered people of interest because they were out with her that night. They all were very cooperative with the investigation, but some of the parents refused to let the boys take polygraphs. So
I get that. To be fair, I get that.
I get it. So the parents did this. They said, "Okay, if you want if you want a polygraph, we're going to go to a private business and we're going to pay for it. And we're not going to let you do it, but we're going to let a professional do it." So they did that. But those results have never been made public. Now, the boys claim that they all passed. So we're going to speed through time just a little bit, and we're going to jump 2 months to August 2011.
So at this point, 2 months later, approximately 3,060 tips had come in on the case, and the police obviously are following up on as many as they can, and one of these led them to Sycamore Ridge landfill in Pimento. And the police began an extensive 9-day search for evidence or, heaven forbid, remains or anything noteworthy. And the landfill where this was is where the trash from Bloomington was sent. So, to assist in this search, the FBI joined in. They were unable to locate any evidence, no remains. So, whatever this tip was, it did not pan out, but it did turn into a very, very big deal. Whatever it was, they were pulling out all the stops. They dedicated a lot of time and resources to this. So, it would be 4 years later that a possible link with Lauren's disappearance would emerge. And the Bloomington police became curious if another student's disappearance and murder could be linked.
Now, Hannah Wilson was also a student at the university, and she too visited Kilroy's bar. And it's the same one that Lauren went to the night that she disappeared. Hannah was last seen getting into a taxi in front of that same bar and being driven away. But Hannah never made it home. Her body was found the next morning in Brown County. Now, the police did arrest Daniel Missel after his cell phone was located near Hannah's body. Almost a year into investigating Daniel for Lauren's disappearance, the police just could not find a link, whether he covered his tracks really well or if he was just completely innocent of it. We're going to fast forward again to January 28th, 2016. This is when the FBI was investigating a property on the 2900 block of Old Morgantown Road in Martinsville. This is about 20 miles away from where Lauren was. The FBI released a statement that the investigators were following up on leads and tips that came from Morgan County regarding the disappearance of Lauren.
So, this property was connected to a man, Justin Wagers, who lived there with his mother and stepfather. And Justin was known in the area, and he was known for basically flashing women in inappropriate ways. So the FBI investigators, they are following this tip. They bring in cadaver dogs. They never said why, but one can assume that they brought in cadaver dogs because they were looking for bodies or a body. And the dogs did hit on a part in the barn where the dirt had been shifted, and it did show signs of having been disturbed. The team brought in anthropologists, but there was nothing found that would bring about any charges. They did take a white truck from the property to the crime lab, but this did not really prove anything as far as locating Lauren. But if you're on, if you have a barn, I mean, that could technically be a dead animal. I mean,
It's a lot there.
yeah.
But all right, so let's get to theory time. So there's a lot of theories that are out there right now, and the one that gains a lot of traction is that she was drugged while drinking. Now, it's split here. You have Lauren's parents that believe that she didn't survive the night hanging out with her friends drinking because she was drugged at the bar. Now, that would have explained her behaviors, leaving her shoe, her phone, her purse, her keys. And her dad says, we felt like someone slipped something into her drink at Kilroy's. Her parents do not believe that she partaked in the Klonopin or the cocaine that has been rumored to happen at the beginning of the night. Her family has been very vocal about their suspicions about the men she was hanging out with. And this even includes Jesse. They're suspicious of him, even though he was cleared and he was texting her all night. Jesse's alibi was he was sleeping at his apartment. No one was there, but the police believe him because they're looking at cell phone data, they're looking at text messages, they're looking at the overall. He's not seen on any of the surveillance videos that Lauren was captured on. So the police feel confident in that Jesse was not a part of it. Now, the parents are also fighting those polygraphs taken at the private companies. They're saying that they're a bunch of criminals, to be quite honest, and they refuse to believe that the boys had nothing to it. What they're saying is that maybe something happened and the boys are covering it up.
Yeah, because those polygraphs, even though the results weren't made public, they said, "Oh, we passed them." And they're like, "Well, again, this is crap. You can't necessarily just go by that." So, another theory is an overdose. Lauren did have an alleged history with drugs. There are allegations from her boyfriend's mother saying that the camp where all of them met, Lauren was actually asked to leave because of drug use. And she actually had a quote where she said, "This poor little girl is not with us today because of her drug abuse." So there's a little bit more to that because Lauren was arrested on September 2nd of 2010 on charges of public intoxication and illegal consumption, and this was months before she disappeared. So when she was reported missing, the police did search her apartment, and they found a small amount of cocaine in her room. So Jay, remember the friend after she went to the apartment, and that's where she left from when she was last seen. So he told the investigators that when they were at his apartment, Lauren crushed up the Klonopin and snorted some cocaine before leaving. But there is one caveat here. Lauren had long QT syndrome, which is a heart defect. And with the high amounts of alcohol and drug use, her body could have given out. Her heart could have given out.
Now, the theory is because of the drugs and the alcohol, it put stress on her heart and she overdosed and died. This is where the parents come in and speculate that it was a cover up. Some think that Michael and Jay and Corey hid her body because they're scared of the criminal charges. Because remember, Michael supposedly took Jay upstairs because Jay was getting sick, put him to bed. And they're just not even buying this. So what the parents did is they hired a PI, the private investigator named Bo. And Bo, he just told the parents, "Look, I'm not buying this cover up." And he's even quoted in one of the newspapers saying, "Every kid's buying pot, cocaine, drinking, pills." I mean, it's all over the place. So that really can't be the motive behind it.
So he's saying, they're not scared of getting caught because everyone is doing it, essentially.
Pretty much.
So another theory is, and it has not been ruled out, is that she was abducted by a stranger. There's not a whole lot to support this, but it technically is a theory. There's no footage or anything showing that, but again, you'd never know. Another theory is Daniel Massey, and we talked about this a little bit, was responsible for another kidnapping and murder, but no evidence was found on his property or in his white truck. But some people do believe that there is still a connection that they just have not found.
So there's a couple of civil lawsuits that her parents filed. They filed them on the premise of these kids need to tell us more. And so the parents filed a suit against Jay, his roommate Michael, and the next door neighbor Corey. They did this to bring out more information. They subpoenaed 134 days of text messages from each kid. These text messages span from before she went missing and after she went missing. So I'm guessing what they're trying to do is create a storyline, maybe motive, and then afterwards of hiding the evidence. But these are parents who don't know where their daughter is. They think foul play. I totally get where they're coming from. And the last time they even saw Lauren was on Mother's Day. So your heart is just breaking for them. And I get the path they're going down. But the suit is dropped against Michael in 2013. And in 2014, Jay and Corey's side is dropped as well. The judge was like, "Look, there's just not enough to go on here to finish out the suit." The boys had to go through round after round after round of interviews by the police, private polygraphs, investigators that the family hired. So if their story was going to change, which it never did, the police were like, "Look, they don't have anything to do with it. the judge was like, I agree. The suit is dropped. Now, the police say this case is still ongoing, and they have executed at least 10 search warrants. In the previous 3 to 4 years related to the case, they have received over 800 tips, which they followed up on about 100 of them. So, I mean, they're still actively pursuing this.
So Lauren Spierer was last seen wearing black leggings and a white top. Again, she is 4'11", weighs about 95 pounds, blonde hair and blue eyes. And if anyone does have any information, the phone number to call would be 812-339-4477 or 212-557-3334. That's actually the private investigator number. And the earlier one is the tip line. It does seem weird to me. Could see someone possibly being drugged and, losing shoes and phone or whatever. And then something goes horribly wrong and they die in a friend's apartment. And maybe it's not drugs that they're scared of, but they're scared of the fact of being charged with murder. And,
Yeah, I get it. I get the parents' angle that the boys had something to do with it.
It just seems weird that many people were with her that night, and then now nothing. No one knows a single thing. It's so weird.
But at 4:30 in the morning, she's going to her apartment, which is literally just a few blocks down. But remember, she doesn't have her keys. She doesn't have her cell phone. She doesn't know where they are.
But see,
she's walking the streets trying to find them. She could have been picked up.
But that's assuming, and again, I don't want to falsely accuse anyone. I'm strictly just speculating here, and I will be the first to admit that. But that's assuming that she did leave the apartment.
Assuming she did.
Anybody could say, yes, she left, and that's the last time we saw her. We don't know anything after that. That's assuming that she did leave.
And what concerns me here is there's no surveillance video from those cameras in and around that place that picked her up on her way to and from the different places she was. There wasn't a video of her at 5 o'clock in the morning searching for things. But it doesn't mean
they all came before that.
But that doesn't mean that she went a different way because she's high, she's drunk, she's incoherent. She could have fallen down in an alley that's not covered, and her heart could have stopped there.
But then somebody they would have found her, which is what's weird to me. Somebody would have found her, and if they're not involved in it, why would they hide her? They wouldn't. They would come across something in an alley and call police. But in my head, and again, I am speculating, I admit that, but I could see it where, again, they're not scared of being caught with drugs necessarily, but they are scared of it. Let's say that she died in the apartment and they were using drugs, then they could technically be charged with something worse than just having drugs. But
where's the surveillance video of them putting the body in the car or taking her somewhere?
But there may not
her body.
Yeah, I mean, but there may not have necessarily been any at that apartment complex, or maybe there's a back, one of the what do you call them, the stair, like when you go out the back and the
fire escapes.
Yes, thank you. I don't know, I would have to see the apartment, but I don't know if there necessarily would be video footage at that apartment complex. There were in some of the alleys, but that doesn't necessarily mean they were everywhere.
But logistically, practicality, and reality, would college kids know where to put a body that has never yet been found? I don't know if I could successfully hide a body because they were drinking too, they participated in the drugs. Would they have been of mindset to hide a body? Because Jesse was on it the next day. He was on it. And for them not to turn it on each other and point fingers, that's a code of silence that most people don't do.
I mean, I will say if there's, the more people there are, the more likely someone is to break. And they were questioned a lot, multiple times. So there is that factor.
It's an interesting case because you can argue both sides. You can argue on the parent side, the boys had something to do with it.
Yeah.
But then you're faced with realistic facts of they were all drinking, they were all high. Where would they have hidden her? And how would they be able to keep that pack of that story for so long under so much pressure, under so many polygraphs and interviews and you know what I mean? But then on the flip side of it is she leaves the apartment to vanish.
And abduction. I mean, it could be. It could. He saw a pretty blonde girl, which she was, who seemed intoxicated, and that's an opportunity for the wrong person.
I think she got lost and ran into a bad person looking for her stuff. Because she had no way of getting into that apartment unless she broke a window, assuming there was a window where she could get in. If it just seems kind of wonky to me. I think I'm leaning more towards she ran into something bad on her way of looking for her things. But then again, there's no surveillance video. But people don't vanish into thin air.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's very sad. I mean, her parents have still just been going strong after all this time. And, you would think after a while, you're just exhausted and do you step back for a little while, and they have not. But that wraps up the story of Lauren Spierer and the missing series. So we will be back in January with a brand new series.
Patreon.com/Corpus Delicti if you want to contribute to the show. We use it for recording equipment and our fight for the road of redemption for Rocky. Please know that we are still fighting for him. We've got some stuff in the works, so we're definitely working on the clemency package and making sure that we can get those letters into his lawyers so they can be presented to our governor. And hopefully she has a heart and she can read all of the great and amazing things about Rocky and know that he hopefully is wrongfully convicted as we believe him to be.
Yes. So if you want to send a letter, it's P.O. Box 89, Chelsea, Alabama, 35043. Other stuff that we're working on that we'll be spending a lot of time on during our quote unquote time off in December. But really, actually, we're doing a lot. So, yeah.
We're probably working harder in December than we ever have in any month.
But on the note of Patreon, we do have 2 new Patreon supporters that we want to give a big welcome to, and that is Brittany and Dee Dee. So thank you so much. All of your goodies are on the way.
And don't forget the merch store. We have fabulous merchandise, makes great stocking stuffers and Christmas presents.
All right.
Until then, you know what we said to Felicia.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm Raven Rollins, and this is my Southern True Crime podcast where I discuss cases from my former hometown. Ada, Oklahoma paints itself as an average community, but its history of murder and corruption runs deeper than any story has ever told. You'll hear plenty of special guests, including authors and experts in their fields, who visit with me on each episode, as well as other cases in the southern states. With notorious and unknown cases alike, every victim sees the light on my show. This is Sirens, a true crime podcast.